In this video lesson, we're going to illustrate the different limit theorems. There are 8 limit theorems that we're going to illustrate. Let's go ahead and take a look at these 8 limit theorems. Number 1 is the limit of a constant is itself. Considering that k is any constant, then we can say that the limit of k, which is the constant, as x approaches c, is equal to the constant, or simply k. Like for example, limit of 2 as x approaches c is equal to 2. Ganun lang kadali. Another example, limit of 5 as x approaches c is equal to the constant, which is 5. Limit of negative 101 as x approaches c is also negative 101. Always remember, the limit of a constant is also the constant itself. Second theorem under limits, limit of x as x approaches c is equal to c. So this is referred to or similar to the substitution law. If you have limit of x as x approaches c is equal to c. So example, limit of x as x approaches 2 is equal to 2. So whatever the value that your c takes, that's going to be the limit of a variable x. Another example, limit of x as x approaches negative 5 is equal to the value of c, which is negative 5. Limit of x as x approaches 0 is equal to 0. Third theorem under limit, the constant multiple theorem. So within this succeeding theorem, starting from theorem number 3 up to the last theorem, let us consider that the limit of f of x and the limit of g of x as they approach c has a limit, and the limit of these two functions are L and M respectively. Ito yung illustration natin. So limit of f of x as x approaches c equals L. Limit of g of x as x approaches c equals m. So we're going to consider these limits in the succeeding theorems. So limit of k, let's go back to constant multiple theorem. Limit of k, which is a constant, times the function is the same as taking out the constant k times the limit of the function as x approaches c is equal to k times L. So yung L natin, we have already defined that it is the limit of the function f of x. So k times L. For example, limit of f of x, let's say we have a numeric value for the limit L. The limit of the function x or f of x as x approaches c equals 4. Then we can say that the limit of 8 times the function as x approaches c equals, ilabas natin si 8. 8 limit of times the limit of f of x as x approaches c. So kunin lang natin yung limit ng f of x. And we have defined that the numeric value for the limit of f of x is ito, positive 4. So we can multiply 8 times 4, which is equal to 32. Let's try another example. Limit of negative 11 times a function f of x as it approaches c is equal to, labas natin si negative 11. So negative 11 times the limit, lagyan ka na lang ng dot, times the limit of the function as x approaches c is equal to negative 11 times 4. Take note again, we have defined that f of x, or the limit of f of x, is equal to 4. That's why we have negative 11 times 4, which is also equal to negative 44. So that's for the constant multiple theorem. Next is the addition theorem. In the addition theorem, we say that the limit of a sum of functions is the sum of the limits of the individual functions. Ibig sabihin, if you have two or more functions or you are adding two or more functions and you'd like to get the limit of these functions, pwede mong gawin is you separate this function individually. Pwede mong kunin yung limit ng isang function, you also get the limit of the other function, and then you're going to get the sum, or you get the difference of the limits of these two. So for a mathematical representation, the limit of f of x plus g of x as x approaches c is the same as taking the limit of the first function and adding the limit of the second function. And from the defined limits that we have done in number 3, we know that the limit of f of x is equal to L and the limit of g of x is equal to m. So we have L plus m, and this holds true with the subtraction. So pinalitan lang natin yung operation. That's why we have L minus m. So if limit, consider natin, if the limit of the function x or f of x as x approaches c is equal to 4, so 4 na yung L, and the limit of g of x as x approaches c is equal to 5, we can say in our example that the limit of f of x plus g of x as x approaches c is equal to, we get the limit of f of x, which is 4, so we have 4 plus the g of x, which is 5, we have 5 equals 9. And that is also true with subtraction. Try lang natin. Limit of f of x minus g of x as x approaches c is equal to, you take the limit of f of x, kunin yung limit ng f of x muna, minus you take also the limit of g of x as x approaches c, and dito nakadefine yung limit ng f of x ay 4 and yung limit ng g of x is 5. So we have negative 1 for the difference of the limits of the two functions. Number 5 is the